All right, hello everybody. This is your metric system lesson. I wanted to go ahead and make this for you, mostly because I know that I wasn't going to be here today. So this is your lesson on the metric system. For a lot of you, this should be review, but for those of you who it is not, I'm going to try to do my best to go through this slowly, but yet not take super long in the video as well. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Recently, we had this big national news, and it was the hurricane that made landfall down here in Louisiana. And if I were to ask you how large this hurricane was, what would you say? And I think as you're thinking about it, most of you would give me something in miles. Okay, well, the answer is around 600 miles wide. And so I can ask you something similar where I just continue to ask these random questions, but how much do you think that this elephant weighs? And again, think about it, but the answer is going to end up being somewhere around 9,000 pounds. If I were to put that elephant on the moon, and again, you're going to get something slightly less, but again, you're 1,500 pounds. Okay, let's do one more. How much water does it take to fill this pool? This is an Olympic-sized swimming pool. This is actually the Olympic swimming trials. How much water does this take? About 660,000 gallons of water. Now, if you were to make a phone call and you were all of a sudden call a scientist over in Germany, who the United States has a great science working relationship with German scientists, but if you were to call them and present these measurements, would they know what you were talking about? And I think as you sit there, you're going to realize that the answer to that question is no. And one of the reasons why it is no is because the United States does not use the metric system and the rest of the world does. The United States is one of three countries. There's only three countries in the world that do not use the metric system. So in order to help against that, the scientific community has to use the metric system. If we are going to communicate, we just got done with Science Has No Borders. If we are going to communicate throughout the world, we are going to have to use the same measurement system. And so the scientific community uses the metric system, and therefore, when we're in science, we will use it too. Okay. Now, at this point in the video, there is an awesome video that I have attached on Canvas. And this is a little bit of the editing view, but when you get on your Canvas page, you'll see something that looks like this. It is, step 1B, but it will look exactly like this, why the metric system matters. I want you to pause this video, and I want you to go and watch this video, the why the metric system matters. Okay, go ahead and pause that video. All right, so that video was awesome. It tells us all about where the metric system came from, why the United States doesn't use it. But we know at this point that we absolutely have to use it as a scientific community, because in order to communicate these numbers about the hurricane and the elephants and the pool to that German scientist, we're going to have to give it to them in metrics. So that 600 miles all of a sudden becomes something that is called 965 kilometers. Notice the km. We're using meters, but we have a kilo in front of it. Same idea with the elephant. 9,000 pounds becomes 4,082 kilograms. So we're using grams as a unit of weight, but it's in kilograms. We also have the elephant on the moon, 1,500 pounds. All of a sudden it becomes 680 kilograms. And then 660,000 gallons becomes 2.5 million liters. You guys have probably heard of liters before, but that is the metric measurement is liters. All right, now why is metric way better than the imperial, which is the United States' form of measurement? And it's because the metric system is consistent. I got some measurements for you to just display how random these numbers are. 12 inches equals 1 foot. 5,280 feet equals a mile. Who remembers that? 3 feet equals 1 yard. These are so totally random. The metric system looks like this. 100 centimeters equals a meter. 1,000 meters equals a kilometer. 1,000 millimeters equals a meter. Do you guys see how that is multiples of 10? It makes way more sense to use the metric system. Okay, it's way easier once we understand it. Now, we do have to practice with this a little bit because the metric system at a first glance can be a little confusing. So this is our base. This is the conversion chart. So this is what is going to help us. I want to draw your attention to a couple of places here. First of all, this middle section, these are our units, right? When we're talking about length, we're going to be using meters. When we're talking about volume or how much liquid we have of something, we're going to be talking liters. When we're talking about the mass or the weight of something, we're going to be talking about grams. Now, notice to either side of it, if you go towards the right, you're talking about smaller. So you have a meter. If you're talking about a centimeter, that is smaller than a meter. But if you're talking about a kilometer or a kilometer, that is larger than a kilometer than a meter. Now, one of the ways that we can get there is just by moving the decimal point, okay? And we'll go through some of this stuff here in a little bit, but let's just say we had 1 gram of something and we wanted to figure out, okay, well, how many centigrams would that be? It says to move the decimal point 1 space to the right. So for every one of these, we would move the space 1 to the right. So if we had 1 gram, now it would be 10 decigrams, and it would be 100 centigrams, and it would be 1,000 milligrams is equal to 1 gram. Okay, let's practice this a little bit. All right, I've got our chart over here still. What unit we would use to measure. So this is just us trying to figure out, okay, what unit are we even going to start with? And if we were looking at my desk, we would probably measure that in centimeters. Okay, meters is probably too big, but we'd probably do it in centimeters. If we were measuring the length of a paperclip, that's probably going to be millimeters, something even smaller. If we were going to measure the amount of coffee in my mug or in my cup, we're probably talking milliliters. Okay. The best way to remember liters, because that's one that we really don't ever talk about, is think about a 2-liter bottle of pop or something like that. So we're talking about just a little bit of coffee. We're probably talking about milliliters. The weight or mass of a lemon, now we're talking grams. Okay, we're trying to get the mass of that. All right, now conversions. This is kind of what we just talked about a little bit. If we have 1.7 meters, we need to figure out how many centimeters that is. So how many spaces, we've got meters, how many spaces away is centi? Well, it's 1, 2. So we would simply need to move that decimal point 2 places to the right. 1, 2. So we're going to end up with 170 centimeters. Okay, that would have been, if the decimal was here, 1.7 meters, we moved it 2 places. 1, 2. Same idea for the length of a paperclip. If we're starting at 50 millimeters, when we need to get to centimeters, we're here in millimeters, we need to get to centimeters, so we got to go 1 space to the left. So 50 becomes 5. Now, if we go down to the amount of coffee and we start at 238 milliliters, and we've got to go to liters, that's 1, 2, 3. So we would go 1, 2, 3. So that's 0.238 liters. The last one here is the weight or mass of a lemon. And if I had it starting at 0.058 kilograms, and we got to go to grams. So we're going to start here, kilo, and we're going to move 1, 2, 3 spaces to the right. 1, 2, 3. That'd be 58 grams. Listen, guys, I know that this can be a little tricky. We are going to practice this, okay? You can definitely watch this video again if you need to. There's also a bonus video at the bottom of this Canvas page for you to watch a little bit more on how to do this specifically. I didn't want to make this video 15 minutes long. It's already going to be long enough. And so I couldn't go really any slower on this. So if you need a little bit more help, go down and watch that video for the extra help. Guys, I know you're working on this on your own today, but I promise you I will be back tomorrow to give you a little bit of extra help. So do your best, and we'll talk soon.